Okay, so in this one, we're going to talk about multiplying two matrices together. So this is one of the more important ideas here. It helps us going forward with a lot of the other topics. But overall, it's one of those things that I know this sounds, of course, this sounds true, right? But once you get it, you get it. It's not. Go through the process, pause the video, rewind, and see what I'm doing from step to step. It's not hard, but there's just this systematic process that you have to follow. Okay. So what I want to start with is sorry, the images are a little off. I'm going to go through this. We want to find the product of these two guys, and the way that we multiply matrices is a little bit different than scalar multiplication. Okay, and so the idea is I am going to multiply these two guys, and I'm going to create a new matrix. Okay, so I have negative 1, 0, 3, negative 4. It doesn't matter whether it's, brackets like I have or what's in the problem before I typed it out. And so this is going to equal a new matrix. We're going to start out with kind of an easy one, but I know that the way that this is started, I'm going to end up with, and there's a reason why I know it's going to end up like this. Okay, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I'm basically trying to find, when I multiply these guys, I'm trying to find each one of these pieces, right? What are the four pieces that are inside here? So I have to multiply some stuff together to get this, 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 and this. So the way that I'm going to get this guy is row 1, column 1. So that means I work with row 1, column 1. So I'm going to work with these guys to get my new number. Okay, so what that means is I'm going to take common entries, right? So that means we have a negative 1 and a negative 3. These are in the common spot. So I multiply these guys together. So I take negative 1 times a negative 3, and I add it to the other common entries. The 0 is the second part of this row, and the 5 is the second part of that column. So I get 0 times 5. And I add these guys together. So I get 3 plus 5, and that equals 8. So this is the work for row 1, column 1. This guy is going to equal 8. So it doesn't matter what order we do it in. So now let's go ahead and find this guy. This guy is row 2, column 1. So that tells me I need to use row 2, column 1. So I'm going to use this information. The entry in the new matrix that's being created tells me which parts I'm going to use of the two. So if I'm looking for row 2, column 1 in the matrix, I need to use row 2, column 1 in the two matrices that I'm multiplying together. So I'm going to go ahead and shrink this a little bit so I have a little bit more room. So here's my work for row 2, column 1. I would take the first terms of both pieces and multiply them together, and then take the second terms of both pieces and multiply them together, and then add. So I'd get a negative 9 plus a negative 20, so this would be negative 29. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and work, and I'm just going to go top down. I'm going to get row 1, column 2. So I'm going to use the information from row 1. The first piece is negative 1. That's the first element. And then row 2 is, or column 2 is this guy. So 3. So 3 is the first one. And then I'm going to have 0 times 0. So that's kind of nice. It balances out. So that becomes a negative 3. So this piece with negative 3. And notice how I set up my table. It matches the matrix here. So now I have row 2, column 2. So I know we're getting kind of messy here, but I'm using this guy and this guy, right? That's row 2, that's column 2. So I take the 3's, let me change the color. So I take the 3's and multiply them together. Those are the first terms. And then I'm going to add that to the negative 4 times 0. And that gives me 9, because negative 4 times 0 is 0. And so this process, and I'm going to clean this up, so we get 8, -3, -29, and 9. So I've cleaned up the answer a little bit. Here it is right here. So yes, it is a little bit of a process, but by practicing and working through this idea, it will become second nature and very easy to complete, okay? There will be plenty more examples, and we started off with a little basic one, 2 by 2 times a 2 by 2, and now we're going to go backwards a little bit and talk about the process in which we need to follow in order to perform matrix multiplication. There are some standards that we got to look at before we start to put two of these guys together.